Can you believe this? Built in 1911 by the Prussian army before World War I. And look at the rebar in the walls before World War I by the Prussian army guarding the sailing entrance to Gdansk. This is something I had not thought. But the numbers, they don't lie. 1911. Yay. We're going to take a walk along the coast on both sides of Gdansk. Gdansk. Sorry, I keep doing that. Don't know why. Anyway, it was for centuries a major port. So naturally, later as part of the Prussian Empire, fortifications were constructed here. And after 1919, the Polish also wanted to protect their harbor, as did the Germans from 1939, and the Polish again after 1945. So, as you can imagine, there is an ungodly amount of defenses and bunkers built on both sides of the port over the past several centuries. So let's take a look at what is here. You may be surprised. We're starting on the east side of the port. It's very interesting. I am in a small piece of forest with one of the busiest container harbors right here of Gdansk, of Poland. And right here, I'm in a forest, and I see trenches, I see shell craters. There's apparently a slew of little bunkers here. Again, I don't know anything about them, if they're built by the Germans or the Poles. I'm literally just waiting to stumble on the first one to find out who built a defensive position here, because that's what it looks like. That's what that looks like. Look, little crater there. That is sort of what they look like, and the busy docks are right here. So now we'll see what I can see here. What we'll find. I love the exploring. It just, so many years ago there was battle here, and you can still sort of see it. This does look so much like remnants of trenches, and it tells me I'm standing right on top of it. They're marked by the map, so look at these. Wait a minute. Does this not look like an emergency exit? Square hole, cement. Which means I won't be standing on top of it. And again, here looks like a crater. The Poles fought here in 39, and the Germans fought here in late 44, 45, but at a time where the ground was frozen. So, how much could you really have dug in at that time? This is curious. So I'm standing on cement. Alright, we'll just continue. I see something over there that's been painted by graffiti. Ooh, wait a minute. Here we go. What do we got here? Here it is. Well, they're not kidding when they close this thing off, are they? They closed that thing really, really convincingly. That's not a good sign. And yeah, Bau, B-A-U-T. Bout. So they got the years out. Oh, this is big. This doesn't help you much since I can't. They were serious. Little hatch there. Close us up, but okay, so it was built by the Germans or the Prussians, and this one is obviously closed. But this is big, this is very large. I can see lots of rooms in there. See, this one could be the corner, and then right almost 50 meters over there is the emergency exit. Alright, so we keep going. We'll see another one over here. See if we have a better look. Just 2 more steps further. See the ring here? We've seen those rings before, haven't we? Very much does look like a fighting position. I'm gonna go up on top here, and I guess the harbor would be right across from there. And if the container harbor wasn't built up as it is now, you might have been able to see the water, but there's still a bit of stretch of land. It's just an interesting place to defend. Clearly that thing is above ground. Maybe that
I see something I think I know what is. I'm not much mistaken, that's a coal shelter. And look at this. There's plumbing down. It looks like a plumbing tile. Yeah, rounded tile. Oh, and I'm just going to take a step backwards. Because, look at this. There's a part of the platform. And there's another leg of that platform. So, is that a bunker I'm standing on? Is this a little bridge? Is here an entrance? Oh, what's this? This looks like brick. I have no idea what this is, but as we come closer to it, this one's a little bit jealous. Look at it. Oh, there's another coal shelter. From the other side, to look around. And that doesn't have a roof. There's another one down there. Why doesn't this square thing have a roof? Okay, obviously it's not a bunker, but a wall from direct fire, maybe for... Ooh, wait a minute. Oh, what do we have here? Something entirely different. I'm just speculating. So we have dirt on the roof. And this is pretty much it. This is pretty much the roof. Huh. Observation? That's pretty open for artillery observation. I wonder if here was not a... There's a little indent, there's a square. There's a square around here. There's a square. Let's go downstairs and see what we can see down there. So there's no build year on this one. I usually have a door, or a door. Okay, it's built a little shoddy. And there's nothing here. There's nothing in the roof at all. That's very strange. Well, that was a twig. Could have been a radio antenna. And if that could maybe have been an indent for a door to open. And then you're out here again. Retaining wall there. Alright, let's move on to the next one. I'm curious here. It's very fickle, keep bouncing all over the place. So here is what remains of a little shelter. Soon, a trench that ran this way, over to what's over there. Is there another little shelter? This is like a half-dome shelter. Look at these. Fill them up good. I would almost think this is late war emergency. Let's throw something together because the Russians are coming. Just a little artillery shelter. It could even have been a bomb shelter for the port, or the one I'm looking at now. Could also have been a Cold War shelter. I could have wandered myself into part of this that's Cold War as well. Because if the Prussians were here for a tactical reason, then the Germans would have been here for tactical reason, and the Russians would have been here afterwards, also for the same reason. This is just the battlefield that keeps going. Right over here, I could imagine, alright, this is Cold War. But look, I can see that's Cold War materials that runs up here to a little observation bunker there that is completely filled up. So under here is an underground bunker as well from the time of the Cold War. So we're back to everybody was here. Or see that round, that looks far heavier. This looks Yeah, Cold War. A defensive position, one-man position in there. Yeah, retaining wall is Cold War Polish. Alright, okay. So let's keep going. Interesting that so many armies, militaries are represented right here. Cold War fence posts. And the bunker was there, and right here is a Cold War boom holder for a driveway, and there would be a little boom you would lower across the road here. Very interesting. Didn't even make it over the... I barely had time to put the camera down. So here, look at this. This looks like a coastal gun position that's been filled up. That's what I would be guessing. Ooh, it is. It is a coastal gun position. That means we can get into it this way. I'll crawl down into this. This is ammunition. Wow, this is very narrow. These are ammunition slots, and they're colorful, yellow, blue, so you would know what munition was here. Come on, please get me a tunnel here. Oh darn, okay. All those spiders just for nothing. Alright. But this is a coastal gun position. Certainly. And it is probably, looking at the colors, Cold War. Doesn't mean there wasn't anything here earlier. Of course, but covered up it is. That's why the trenches are still so fresh.
Now, some of these were constructed from the 1950s as part of the Polish harbor defenses for the Cold War.
This wasn't that long ago since they were still in use. And clearly I'm inside a defended area because there are Cold War fence posts everywhere. So something was protected in here, military area, something, and I see signs there I don't like. They usually mean that whatever's inside there is what I want to see, and it's fenced off. Let's take a look and be optimistic. And then we have Panzerspeer, although they were probably built by the Russians or the Polish and called something else, but this was a close defensive area of some sorts. Like I said, there's a lot of them out here. Actually, this area is starting to remind me a little bit of Hell, where we were last time I showed you. And it is on the other side of the sail-in. So theoretically there would be, or should have been, if you want to defend the port, the military area here, because there was one in Hell on the other side where you had coastal guns defending the sail-in. So there should be a similar here, so you can protect the waterways in both directions. And there's something over here that looks rather large and above ground, and I think there's a door that's closed, but let's keep the optimistic point of view here. And this looks rather German to me. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and pray to the bunker gods. See what Odin has to say when we get there. Definitely World War II. So now the question is, did the Polish build this on the other side of Gdansk to Hell, or did the Germans build it to keep the Russians out? Okay, I'm seeing the backside. I actually haven't made up my mind yet. I see where the hinges were. That doesn't mean they haven't locked it off yet. I'm just a oh, that's why, because they have. Of course they closed it. But these rare defensive windows, well, They don't look German. They also really don't look Polish. Well, they do a little bit like the Polish emergency exits. But why would there be two of them? And why are you closing these things, you muppets?
This one I could actually find a drawing of, because it was built by the Polish after 1920. It was a Polish fire control bunker.
An observation post here. An observation bunker. Now, this is rather large. So this was constructed by the Polish before 1939, exactly as I thought, in order to observe the ocean is right behind me, fire for the coastal guns. So this was the command center of the command bunker. And the trees were gone, you can just barely see the water out here. And way in that direction off to the side is hell. It will annoy me to no end that they keep closing these, but here's one, and there's more. This could be an artillery post, where there would have been a coastal gun, or Howards is sitting up here, the plateau, and then down here would have been munition. In fact, this is exactly what I think this was. A little munition store there, staircase up, and the gun would be sitting up here, and there would be a lot more of them, which is probably what we've seen foundations of, since the command bunker is right there. Now it is interesting that they mentioned this was a position from 1919 to 1944. Because in 1919 the Polish were loosely getting ready to start fighting it out with the Russians. And as this little walk by the beach has turned into a significantly longer walk than I thought, because bunkers just keep popping up. All of this was parts of various armies' old artillery position, coastal artillery. This was I actually don't know exactly what this was yet. Stand for rangefinder. I would not put that past what this could have been. It's all coastal artillery. I'm thinking this is German. Now that I'm seeing the entrance, I'm no longer thinking it's German anymore. Whoa, wait a minute. This is Prussian. Built in 1911, before World War I. This is old Prussian coastal artillery. Well, bloody hell. What have we here? This is well built. Now remember, this is before World War I. Look at the rebar. There's rebar in the cement here. Look at that. This is pre-World War I. Prussian. And the Prussians knew what they were doing. Huge hinges. Very interesting. So the Prussians were doing this. This looks as modern as anything. I mean, this must have been used for World War II and upgraded and modernized. And this platform, this was for a rangefinder, I'm certain. Would have popped up through there, and here would have been an observation deck. This is what this was. Although, if not for artillery, what would these little indents here have been? It's not like they would have little phone booths. This is very interesting. But you can't lie in the design. The bunker was built in 1911. This must be a stand. That must have been placed during the Second World War. Must have been. (1911). This was not. I don't know if this would have been before. The letters have been further apart. Yeah, about 1911. That's not what the Germans would have written at the time, anyway. Can you believe that? Prussian 1911 coastal battery. Wow. No longer a military road, but in here is another one of something. And you really have to look carefully here. But I thought I was looking at something younger. I'm not. I'm looking at something way more interesting than World War II. Because this really shows how advanced the Prussians were in their bunker construction. Now, this was just a little shelter with a reinforced ceiling, and it was built by the Prussians. I would say certainly reinforced, yeah. Let's look at the wood, it still looks good. Just a little shelter. Now somebody said there's a Würzburger. Oh, wait a minute. This is a munition store. Of course, here's another munition store. That means there would have been a gun here and a gun there. Yeah, these are where the gun positions were. And there's something else in front of me there. This is a very old Prussian gun position. But if the position over there was built 1911 with reinforced cement, then why is this just slapped together with pebbles, rocks, and what looks like discarded junk? So this could, and like I said, I'm wandering around between three armies here, their positions, so this could also be a Cold War position, because the Russians / Polish in this area built things quite a bit more slobby than the Prussians had. More shelters, probably a couple of guns here, probably this one has caved in. We'll see. Yeah. There's one there. That one caved in. And this one here is caved in. And this one has, well, sort of the same. There's weatherproofing on it. So these are 4 little shelters, probably ammunition, with a gun right here in the center. I'm going to have to look up, find out if these were Russian, Prussian, or Polish. I'm sensing that is a recurring theme. But I'm impressed what the Prussians built back then. And 200 some meters away is the next, and this looks just like the first 1911. It certainly does. See, here you can clearly see the room is more pronounced, not so full of dirt. This would be an ops post. People would be standing down here, and behind them there would either be rangefinder, or they could be optics. This is so thin it probably was an optic. Interesting with the steel here, why the pigtails there. But this would have been covered with a steel plate, and you'd have the ocean right there. And this is the same setup. You could also have the rangefinder here on this little half round that is in better shape than the other one. I would almost think this would have been a rangefinder and then an optic up there, periscope, and the bunker down here.
Now this I absolutely love. It was exactly what I thought it was. This is the right side artillery observation bunker, with a rangefinder as the small cement circle next to it. There was a periscope here in a Panzerturm. There was also radio and telephone connections to the 28-centimeter batteries further back. Those I missed this time. I did not know they were there, but these were, as we know, completed in 1911 with a steel dome and heavy rebar in the cement. This was way ahead of everybody else of that time. They were also well camouflaged here, as were the batteries further back, some by the coast and some located in forest batteries further back.
So here again, another optic here, another bunker there. This almost looked like that would have been the gun position right there, doesn't it? Can't say if there was, but I know there were several optics in here. Again, about 1911. This is in fairly good shape, which is almost a shame because you can't see the rebar sticking out of the walls like you could before, which I thought was really telling. So there'll be a commander sitting in there. So here again, the optic would be sitting on this and protruding through the hole. And then there would be all the stuff on the wall. Rebar sticking out of the walls. Almost looks like something blew up down here. Could also be decay, of course, but it does look a little fragged. And considering much of the road here was obviously built by the Prussians, I can't really be surprised, can I? And then here, the road turns into a Cold War military road. And everything is fenced in one way or another. And here's a classic one-man observation shelter, one-man bunker in the Cold War. And I'm gonna sit there and look out over the ocean, guessing that most of these trees were not here where this thing was planted. This is actually in very good shape. Just barely crawl in there. That was, oh. Except it is observing the way, observing that way. This is the entrance. And you can see on the of the walls here, that is a classic Cold War. So you go in there, and you stand and you would observe the road or the approaches to the military area here behind me. Would be observing this direction, or actually in the cutout direction, as you can see.
Driving through the city to the west. So here I was supposed to be a great big Prussian fort that was completed in 1871, also with 28-centimeter coastal batteries and more. However, what I found here was historical tragedy. This huge Prussian fortress with 4 caponniers and a horseshoe redoubt It is simply gone, with the last part of this historic place leveled in 1967. And to make it worse, I could not find a single photo of any part of it. It is simply tragic, but let's take a look at what is here of the coastal fortifications.
So on the other side of Westerplatte, on the other side of the harbor entrance, is another coastal fortification, coastal fort, which is rather large actually, built in the late 1800s, and this is a small part of it. It extends all the way past for a lot of gun positions, and one of them has taken quite a bit of damage here. I'm standing on top of it. There's a whole fort that has since been turned into residential. The beach is 150 meters to my left here, and I'm imagining the fort was in here, and I see a lot of dirt mounds. I'm going to try to go down and see if I can pop my head in here. These are very deep for an artillery position, and I think this has been dug out because the floor would have been higher. If you go here, you'll see a regular position with the munition store next. Very, very Prussian. It's not unlike what we've seen at Mutzig, and you could imagine a rangefinder observation post there. So now that it's been opened up from beneath, you can see the foundation was built on red brick, which is interesting. I don't know what happened to this thing. I have very little history of this place, but it certainly looked like it has taken some, shall we say, catastrophic damage. So here we can see exactly how it was constructed since it's been dismantled. And many of these bunkers were built in 1911. So again, pre-World War I, steel rebar forts. And I got the amount of trash and stolen suitcases. So let me see if I can actually see anything. I'm thoroughly unprepared because it's my last day. I'm on my way to the airport. So this has been doubling as a homeless shelter, quite clearly. So you go under the gun position, which is very interesting. Check the floor, which is thoroughly wet. And there's a hallway that runs underneath all the guns, and it is thoroughly, well, no it's not. That's really interesting. This must be the munition store. And again, steel rebar, cabling, cement. The ammunition lift up. I'm just checking for what I'm walking on. So don't want to be floating. Yep, now it's getting it is a little flooded here. Very interesting, very interesting. This, lots of rebar in the wall here. Look at this. And this is all before World War I. Okay, so this is a place we're going to need to have a closer look at when I get back into town here. This is going to need a little bit more investigation and a lot of cleanup. So underneath this entire position, in behind is the room. Here was the other entrance up to the observation post. There's a huge shelter down there. This looks like the munition lift, munition storage. The gun was here, and in front of the gun is a space. All of this is a bunker in front of this underground. Somebody showed up and joined my party there. It's a shame this is so trashed. This could have been. So here is another section that is complete with a bunker in front. That's really interesting that they placed a whole shelter in front of these. Built in 1910. So again, this is pre-World War I. And this has been filled up about in 1910. And another. It's very interesting. And this is only the frontal part of the fort. See, there's a lot more. It stretches quite a bit. Yeah, now they sealed up some of them. This could be restored into a nice little open air museum, I would think. Of course, it's all about money. Now, I'm just wondering where the major fort is, the older fort, where that is. This is a different looking position. This looks like an anti-aircraft gun. And I'm not saying there's an aircraft gun here that was built in 1911, because that would have been optimistic. And you look at the amount of rebar and steel in here. So it's not like they didn't know. Oh, we'll get a date. 1912 to something. This is really interesting. And then you see the next. There's just a lot of these. And one of this retaining wall is a little infantry. No, it wouldn't be. This is facing the ocean, the coast, or to the coastline. The water line is a couple hundred meters this direction. Beyond that. And again, I see some shrapnel damage to some of this. I wonder what happened to it. There's a playground behind it, as you can tell. And there's this. I don't know what this is yet, except damaged. And no rebar. There's no cement, no steel rebar sticking out of this. But there is inside the wall, which is very strange. It looks like the same, just exposed. It's a very large shelter with what I'm assuming observation post. There's some rebar in there, but there's none of the actual wall. So they did use rebar, but not everywhere. I think this is the foundation. I think this was covered up in dirt up to a higher level. $1905, right there in the cement. So they knew at this time. Now there's a couple more bunkers. Let's take a look at those. It does look like classic Prussian. And here's another little artillery position. with a little hallway in behind, as we saw on the other side of the entrance. This one is in good shape, built in 1911. This is Vesterplatte, or the very point of it right out there. He's messing around real low to the ground, which is actually kind of cool. Even in California, I don't see him that low. That's hell out there. And it's still a naval base. A lot of stuff going on in there, but out here, many years ago, during the Second World War in 1939, you would have an air battle out here. Lots of German planes were shot down out here. Ships were bombed. There was real hectic activity, Battle of Poland out here in this very bay. So it's, I suppose, interesting to see military aircraft flying about in this area.
Gdansk was extremely heavily bombed, shelled, and destroyed in 1945 as the Russians fought their way through here. It is possible the fort then was used during the war as a magazine, storage, maybe even barracks or hospitals. All I could find was this one photo of the bridge and the spa building behind it, where the fortress would be to the left of this. The Prussian heavy coastal gun battery here had a similar design to that I've seen at Westermutzig. If you did not catch that addition to my episodes from Mutzig, you might want to. I am not done here at all. The remains of these Prussian forts around Gdansk, they are of design right in the middle between the War of 1870 and World War I. I have never seen a pre-World War I fort or bunker with this level of steel, rebar, and concrete. This was decades ahead of its time, which makes me wonder what other evolutions are hiding out here. For the photos, I will go to the archives and try to find something of the lost fort.
My name is Tino Struckmann. I run Lost Battlefields. Every year, I travel around the world to try to bring you to all the most interesting historical military locations from modern wars and the World War II special projects, battlefields, forts, fortresses, and tunnels, everything else. Things you may not be able to see or go to yourselves. Please join me on Patreon or join Lost Battlefields through the website so you get access to all my files and my notes. It really does help, and like, follow, share here on the channel if you can. That helps too.